Good evening. I know it's a little dusky and dark, but I'm going to continue with chapter 6. I'm pretty excited about finishing the book. Thank you for being with me. Responding to another person's anger. My husband yells about the bills. My girlfriend gets angry and avoids me. My boss goes into a tirade about things that are beyond my control. My coworker talks about me behind my back and thinks I don't know it. Clients have made these statements and a multitude of others, and then asked me how they should deal with the other person's anger. I routinely answer, as an adult. This reply may seem simple, even flippant. It is neither. The greatest problem in encountering another's anger is that people return to a child's perspective of powerlessness and vulnerability and react on childhood misinformation. For instance, you don't have to deal with any other person's anger. The angry feeling is his. It's his adrenaline. Therefore, it is his responsibility to deal with it. In fact, he is the only person who can deal with it. Your responsibility is merely to respond in a way that you hope will open the door to greater trust and intimacy. The more you know about anger, and the more work you've done concerning your own angry feelings, the easier your role will be. Therefore, make sure you've completed the preceding 5 chapters before you attempt this one. If you put forth some effort and follow 4 basic guidelines, you will be able to respond effectively to another person's anger. All right, the first category. If you suspect that the person's anger will be expressed violently, get away. No one has the right to strike or harm you. You are not anyone's punching bag. You are a human being. As a human being, you do not have to remain in a place or near a person where danger is an imminent possibility. Leave. Get away from the source of potential harm. There are no exceptions to this guideline. If you are in a situation in which you have been physically assaulted, seek professional advice. There are counselors and groups at shelters, mental health clinics, and social service departments whose main purpose is to assist people who are in potentially violent situations. Understand several facts. Number 1, you did not cause the violent behavior. Number 2, the behavior will not automatically stop. And number 3, you have the right to seek assistance. A little bit more light, it's dark as heck. All right, next part. Understand and attempt to use your own anger productively. As long as you believe the misinformation about anger that you have carried since childhood, and as long as your own anger causes you intense discomfort, you will not be able to respond effectively to other people's angry feelings. You won't be able to listen properly to the person's message or to respond assertively if she expresses her anger aggressively. I, therefore, recommend that you review the informational areas and the exercises in this manual again to be sure that you have attained enough understanding and comfort with your own anger to be effective when you respond to another's. And the next on page 90. Assert self when verbally attacked. If the first guideline is satisfied and you don't think you are in danger of physical harm, stand firm against any verbal put-downs. The well-being of your self-concept is integral to your physical as well as your emotional health. Protect it. Be assertive without being aggressive. Everyone has the right to feel angry, but they do not have the right to use that anger to hurt others. I use 3 basic responses when friends, co-workers, or intimates express their anger in the form of verbal attack. I say, I'm willing to listen to you as long as you stop the attack. Or, I want to hear what you're angry about, and I can't while you put me down. Or a more adamant response, you don't have the right to attack me that way. If you want me to listen, stop the put-downs. Neither you nor I can make a person stop a verbal attack. If you've used an assertive statement and the individual continues put-downs, your role is to assert self. You may excuse yourself and leave. As an alternative, you can ask the other person to leave. If the attacks are ongoing, you begin the assertive process necessary to change your situation. In any of these scenarios, you have made it possible for your affirming self-concept to remain intact. All right, the next part here. I've been reading to you from the Anger Workbook by Lorraine Bilodeau, MS. And here we're on page 91, chapter 6, and almost done. Respond as one adult human being to another. Sorry, I have an ant crawling on me. After you have observed the first 3 guidelines, your own expectations may still obstruct your responding in a productive way when someone else is angry. These expectations you learned in childhood when you were vulnerable and relatively powerless. Review the questions. What are your expectations? And how did you respond in chapter 1? What you find there reveals how you have been conditioned to respond. If your conditioning includes the expectation of harm, accusation, or punishment, you probably defend against or ward off an attack. Even if you are not being attacked, you interpret the anger through the distorting glass of your childhood experience. That interpretation produces a child's response, modified for an adult's use. Review your answers to the questions. How do you respond to anger? In chapter 1. If you are intent on preparing your defense, you can't accurately hear what the angry person is saying to you. You miss the now, because your interpretation of the present is based on your history, rather than on what is actually being said. Your response can't help but be ineffective. This is again, respond as one adult human being to another. And I continue. Therefore, the first objective in responding to someone's anger is movement beyond old expectations and interpretations. That goal accomplished, you are in a better position to hear what others say to you. You may make this change in 2 steps. Interrupt your old expectations with a now statement and command yourself to listen. Anger is a form of communication. What is the person trying to tell you? Does she see self as trapped, cheated, treated unfairly? The only way to find out is to listen. That's in bold type. Listen. The only way to find out is to listen. For example, if you expect anger to be punishing and a friend expresses angry feelings, you can slow down your reactions by practicing several strategies. All right, we got a 4-step system here. Number 1, as you begin to tense, think, stop. Number 2, take a breath. Hold it to the count of 3, and then let it out slowly. Number 3, mentally negate the expectation with a now statement, such as, this person cannot punish me. He is a peer. Number 4, tell yourself to listen. I'll just listen to hear what he's angry about. The next objective is to reply to your friend's message. Speak specifically to what you heard him say. Do not generalize with such answers as, I know how you feel, or I understand your anger. These statements sound condescending and empty. Let your friend hear back in your own words what you heard him say to you. Suppose you think your friend is saying that he thinks you cheated him. Maybe at the beginning of the summer, you had sold him a boat and a week later the motor gave out. He had to replace it. Make sure you are hearing him clearly by asking, are you telling me that you think I've cheated you? If the answer is no, ask for further clarification. Let him know you are trying to understand. If the answer is yes, ask for specific details about his accusation. Ask if he believes that you sold him the boat knowing that the motor was about to break. All right, we're almost done with this part. After listening to the details, your next response demands a deep level of honesty. If he is right and you did cheat him, tell him the truth. Ask whether together you can develop a means of replacing the motor that is fair to both of you. This honesty and compromise may seem difficult, but it is the way mature, responsible adults behave. They take responsibility for their actions. They do not deny, lie, or hide from their mistakes. Children who are afraid of severe punishment from their more powerful parents have a need for these clandestine behaviors, but mature adults do not. Such subterfuge only adds to a denying self-concept. If you did not cheat your friend, if you did not know about the deficiencies in the motor, present the facts. When the facts are real, you need not argue them or defend them. They can stand on their own. There is nothing you can do if your friend won't accept them. Just present the facts and let him decide for himself whether to persist in thinking you cheated. You have done your part. The rest is up to him. It is his interpretation of events. It is his anger. Oh, wow. I was going to quit, but there's only 3 pages left. So we're together in the dark. All right, the next part is interrupting expectations. The most important part of an effective reply when someone confronts you is in anger is listening for a clear, undistorted message. Learned expectations interfere with your ability to hear what is actually said. You can interrupt your conditioned expectations with appropriate now statements. List 3 situations in which someone else expressed anger. Which of your expectations from the questions, "What are your expectations?" and "How did you respond?" in Chapter 1 came to mind? What is an appropriate now statement that negates the old expectation? A now statement shows how the specific expectation is false because of your present status as an adult. Here's an example. "I won't be spanked. I am his equal." And then the first part is you write out the situation. And the next is your expectation. And the third is your now statement. I think it's too dark to try to show you. Now, there's that 3 different times. Go to a quiet place, relax, and clear your mind by using a relaxation method or breathing to the count of 3. Replay the angry situation in your mind. When you begin to feel tense, think, "Stop." Take a deep breath, count to 3, and slowly let it out. Think the now statement. Do this same procedure for each situation that you have listed. And the next to the last is listening and clarifying. Anger carries a message about the person who is angry. If you keep this function in mind, you will be able to listen more easily to another's anger. Think of situations in which you were talking with someone who felt angry. What did she say? What was her message? Her understanding of the events that incited her anger. What would your clarifying response be in each case? A clarifying response begins, "Are you saying that ... or do you think ... If you have no idea of what her message is, your reply shows her that you are trying to understand and are asking her to tell you again what the anger is about. So we have 4 spots for that. So we write out the situation, and then we write out what he or she thinks. And then we write the clarifying response. If you have no idea of what her message is, your reply shows her that you are trying to understand and are asking her to tell you again what the anger is about. All right. Last page. Whew. Emotions were never meant to be destructive or harmful. In fact, the opposite is true. An emotion is a physiological sensation, the same as hunger. Like hunger, which signals the need for nourishment, each feeling functions to satisfy or warn of a human need. For this reason, feelings cannot be classified as good or bad, positive or negative. They are merely utilitarian. It is therefore counterproductive to curb or control emotions, release them, resolve them, or ventilate them. Instead, it is necessary to recognize each feeling, understand its function, and then choose a behavior that responds to that function. Human beings do not have to learn, but are naturally constituted to experience emotions. They must learn what each feeling is and its possible functions. Then, to obtain the desired effects, they must learn the most productive ways of expressing and reacting to that feeling. And these learning processes are interrupted, carried out inadequately, or totally ignored in a person's life. The results are ineffective, at the least, and at the worst, extremely harmful. Now, on the other hand, when taught well, emotions are tools for effective living. Anger is no exception. With the deadline for this book pressing closer, I wanted to take a day off from my job and write. Having a good working relationship with my boss, I called her at home and asked, "If I don't come in today, will you be terribly angry?" She said yes. My next question to her was, "Will I live through the consequences of that and have a job?" She replied yes. I took the day off. It was not her angry feelings that worried me, but the behavior that she might use to express that anger had me on edge. But the principle applies to anyone's anger. It is not the emotion that is destructive, but the way a person expresses it. Since my boss is not a Since my boss is not a vindictive person, my anxiety over a lost job had little to do with her and much more to do with me, my fears and my learned expectations. Once I could put those to rest with more accurate information, I was free to make a decision based on my priorities and not on potential, irrational interpretations. If she had said, "Yes, you will lose your job," I would have had a valid perception of reality, and that valuable piece of information would have become a strong variable in my decision. I probably would have gone to work. Now, you may be thinking, "Well, you're lucky you have a decent boss. Mine's not like that." Lucky had very little to do with it. Anger was much more important. The master's degree that I sought in 1982 because of angry feelings toward a supervisor opened up a world of options. Oh, my Lord. I can now choose whether or not to work for a jerk. When a person can recognize and understand her own anger, it becomes like a friend, a part of her life that brings enrichment. This relationship with her own anger enables her to stop being intimidated by other people's anger. These two results provide her with the freedom to make her own choices and the incentive to act on those choices. And that is the end of our book. I know it's dark, but I'm going to do it anyway because I got a problem. Here's who we've been sharing our time with. Yeah, one of Crystal's old books. I just spotted that there's like some pink over here in the sky, but as soon as I try to move it, I'm bound to lose it. There it is. We finished another book together. I appreciate you. Thank you for being with me. I'll start something new. You know I will.